Hi everybody! In this video I'm going to show how to make some simple Murrini cane. I am going to make a star cane, which is really simple, and then I'll do a simple flower cane using molds for both of them. So please like and share my videos if you really like them. Subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. So the first Murrini I'm going to make is the little star Murrini. It's white at the core and then blue around the outside. And I'm going to be using two different molds. One is an optic mold I actually bought from a glass supplier. And the second mold is actually the inside of a paper punch. I just took out the innards. And it's a funky kind of metal, so I like to use some beeswax to coat the inside of this metal because the glass likes to stick to it. And so I'm going to heat up the mold a little bit with some beeswax in there and coat it around inside. It's almost kind of like when you put, grease or flour inside a baking pan. It helps keep it from sticking. The beeswax actually, I think, burns off at around 500 or 600 degrees or something, but it does leave a nice barrier between the mold and the glass, and so it avoids the sticking issue. So basically, I'm heating up a nice rod of white. I like to use piece white because it's a little brighter of a white, especially for these little stars in the center. And I'm heating it up, and I'm going to let it droop down a little bit to get skinnier, and then push it right into the mold as fast as hard as I can, and then pull it out right away. And you see it flared up. That was the beeswax flaring and burning off there, but that's fine as long as your glass comes out of the mold. So you want to push in and out kind of as quickly as possible so it doesn't try to fuse, the glass doesn't try to fuse to the metal. So I have a nice star shape, and I want to keep that shape. I don't want to put the white in the flame. And I'm just going to solidify the little center indents with a stringer of dark lapis is what I'm using here. So I want to make sure I fortify those inner dents so that they'll stay in the final bead. And after I put that stringer of lapis in there, now I can work with a full rod, and I want to do the same thing. I want to go through and get those center points filled in, the indents of the star filled in so that they'll stay. And I'm just trying to place about the same amount of glass on each indent and fill that in. And in a second here, I'm going to speed up. Oh, I banged the camera there because it's right next to my leg. But so I'm going to start melting it in a little bit and try to see if they're even. And I'm going to speed up this video because it does take quite a while to build up all this glass. And so I noticed that the inner section had a little less glass, like it tapered down there. So I just put some little dots around to even out the glass there. And I'm not really worried about that outer edge of the glass, of the white glass that was kind of dented in a little bit. I'm just worried about this center section, which had the nice star shape. And so now I'm going to coat around all the exposed white sections, which are basically the star points, and just add blue glass all the way around and try to make it an even circle or barrel all the way around that star. And so this is a very simple star Murrini. And if you were actually going to put these stars into a clear base bead, you might want to encase the whole thing in a clear layer on the outside. But since I'm going to actually place these in the same color base bead, which would be the lapis blue, I am just going to leave it solid blue. I'm not going to put a white encasement around it. So one final coat, I'm going to do a coiling around of a little more blue So I have a little more bulk there of blue around the star. And now that it's all even, I can coil it around, no problem. And you just want to try to keep the coils fairly even so your Murrini stays a nice even barrel shape and nice and rounded, and that your star stays in the center. And so basically this is how you create a simple star Murrini. And so the ends, where it tapered down a little bit from the mold, I'm not really worried too much about the very edge there, because that star is going to be a little distorted. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build up some clear glass from the center all the way out to the edge of that blue, so I can pull the whole glass out, the star and the outside blue, all out evenly. And so I make sure that clear goes all the way to the edge, the outer edge of the blue. And then you'll pull your whole Murrini out at the same time, instead of distorting your image by pulling just the center or one side or the other more so than the rest. It'll make it all pull out evenly. And so now I'm going to reattach my clear rod and smooth that out a little bit. And so I have a nice taper of clear going from the outer edge of the Murrini down to that rod. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with the white. I'm bulking up the white there. And then I'm going to flatten that down also to get it to go all the way to the edge, just like I did on the clear. And I could have pulled off the white and used clear on the other side too. So it all depends on, what you want to use, because this is basically wasted glass too. So sometimes you want to use your really crappy clear, or colors that you don't really like for this, because it's basically wasted glass. And so I have a nice taper. It doesn't have to be an elongated taper. It just needs to be a short one, just as long as it goes all the way to that outer edge. So now I'm just going to heat up this whole mass of glass. This isn't a very big Murrini, but it'll give me about 8 or 10 inches of star cane. So it actually gives you quite a few. And if you made a bunch of chips out of them, you'll get quite a few chips out of this. So I kind of put it in and out of the heat. I take it out of the heat, let it soak in a little bit, let that heat soak into the center. You want to make sure it's heated all the way to the center so all the glass will pull out at the same rate. And I'm pretty much getting ready to pull now, so I slowed down the video, trying to get it evened out a little bit. It's a little lopsided. But I'm going to start pulling very slowly. And my white, of course, is a little more soupy than the blue, so it wants to thin out there. So I'm just pulling very slowly and trying not to twist. You don't want to twist, so if you start rotating one hand in the flame, make sure you rotate your other one at the same rate, because you don't want to twist this up while you're pulling. You want to pull out nice and straight. So I'm just heating the bottom of the clear ball there just to get a little more cane out. And as you can see, I have I have about 8 to 10 inches of cane here. And I can spot heat a little bit if I want to make it a little bit thinner. And you could have thicker and thinner canes for different size stars. So you could pull it out however you want. And I'll just snap this off in 2 sections. I will cut these into little Murrini chips later, but just to show you how the star looks. And I will try to zoom in here and show it to you. It's kind of blurry because it's so zoomed in. And it's kind of hard to see, but that's the little star Murrini. Now the second one I am going to make, this one's a little more detailed, takes a little bit longer, but this is a flower Murrini. And I'm going to use the optic mold, the little flower optic mold. But first I want to make some stamen cane for the very center of the Murrini. And so I'm going to build up this stamen. So I have my rod of clear, which is basically just a straight 7 to 8 millimeter rod, and I'm going to put little stripings of yellow around it. And so I'm building up the stamen, and that's going to be the center of the flower, and that's going to be what I'm going to actually push into this optic mold. And so I'm building up this stamen cane. If you have stamen cane already, you can actually use that, maybe just bulk it up on the outside with a little more clear. But this is just showing you how to make a little bit of stamen cane. And I'm going to speed this video up too, because it takes a really long time. And so now I'm going to bulk it up with some clear. And what I want to do here is I want to lay down the clear right in between two of those yellow stripes, because I don't want the stripes to fatten out and actually, maybe even meld together, because they'll widen out on the bead or on the rod if you heat it. So I want to keep them nice and thin. So I'm actually adding, before they're all the way melted in, I'm actually adding the clear in between those stamen lines first, and then I'm bulking up with a little extra clear. So I'm just adding clear to the outside, trying to make it even around so the stamen are pretty centered in the middle there. And I'm going to heat this up and meld it all in. And I will be adding a second layer of stamen. So now these are going down right in between the other ones. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add the stamen stripes and then melt them just a little bit so they don't go flying off. And then I'm going to put the clear in between them to make sure they don't spread out too much and actually meld together. So just adding clear, going around, getting a little scuzz off my clear rod there. And so I look straight down at it, as you see when I turned it right there. I'm looking straight down to see if those stamen are actually in the center, and I'll add more glass to one side or another if it looks too thin. And so it's always a good idea to look straight down at your Murrini, and you can actually see the position of your colors. So I'm going to round this out into a nice barrel. And now I'm going to add one more nice thick coiling. Since it's a nice even barrel now, I'll just add a coiling of clear all the way around the stamen. So these stamen will stay in the center of the flower, and they'll be separated pretty nicely from the petals in the final cane. So I'm just bulking it up, coiling around, adding more clear. And trying to keep it fairly even, adding a little more glass where it looks like it got a little thin. Trying to keep it in even barrel shape for the most part. And then I'm going to melt that down. So this is getting kind of bulky, and it's probably more glass than I really need for the optic mold, but I will be getting rid of the excess glass when I actually mold this. So it's all ready now to be molded, and I'm going to heat this whole thing up and let it droop down so it thins out a little bit so that it'll fit in the mold, because right now it's too fat to fit in the mold. So I'm going to try to thin it out a little. See, it's a little too fat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out a little bit at the tip. I'm also tapering those petals down to a point. Doesn't really matter that I'm doing that, but I'm tapering them down a little more. But I'm actually, now I have a more elongated gather, and that's what I want to put in this mold. So I'm heating that whole thing, let it droop down and push in as hard as I can, and then pull out. See, it kind of sticks a little bit. And now my cane is like really long and skinny at the end, so I just have shears, and sorry I'm off screen here, but I'm cutting off the tip of that extra glass. But here's the flower shape with the stamen in the center. So hopefully you could see those little petals there. But now I'm going to speed up again so you don't have to watch this whole long process. But I'm going to stripe on some of that same lapis blue I used in the star at the very top center of each petal. So it's the very outer edge of each petal that was in that flower. So I have that placed, and then I'm going to use a lighter blue to make the remainder of the petal, the larger portion of the petal. So I'm heating that blue up, trying to straighten out if I needed to straighten out. I'm just heating it a little bit so there won't be any bubbles trapped in there. And I have an issue with this blue cracking on me. I think I have the problem more than once. But now I'm going to stripe down a nice thicker petal right over that blue stripe. So the blue stripe will be in the center. And there my rod broke again. I think there was an air bubble or something in it. But I'm going to make these stripes right along the top of the blue stripes. So there'll be a blue line in the center. And this will basically be the bulk of the flower. And so it's a very simple flower cane. It's like a single color flower cane, but you can actually do multiple layers of petals if you wanted. So I could have kept going with this and made larger petal. I got so aggravated with that blue, I picked up another rod. And this one seems to be working okay. So now I have all my petals on, and I'm going to start melting them down. And I want to make sure that these petals don't spread out too much and actually come together and stick together. So I'm going to pull out a little stringer here of clear because I didn't have any available. So I'm doing it right on the spot. And I'm going to put a little striping of clear in between each of those petals, just so that it will keep them separated. It'll bulk up that clear and keep the petals separate. So now I'm melting in the petals. And as you could see, you know, one side is a lot wider than the other side. And because of this, I'm going to transfer rods. I'm going to punty up a rod to the other side to continue melting. Because if I keep heating this side and trying to make it melt down, I'm heating the rod and making it all floppy. So I'm going to transfer to the other side so that I can melt down that wider side of the Murrini. And I'm just going to get rid of the scuzz there that was from the adjoinment of the two glasses. And now I could heat that wider side and melt it all down. And sorry, that was a cut there. But now I'm going to start encasing with clear. And I'm going to go right in the in-betweens of all the petals, solidify that separation there, and then actually get the center also. So I'm going to get the center between them all, and then actually on top of the petals also. So I'm just bulking up with clear. And this Murrini is also going to have an outer encasement of clear all the way around, so that basically you can add it to a clear bead or any bead that has a transparent or even opaque base to it. The clear will keep the flower separated from the rest of the glass. So there'll be a definite separation. So I'm going to melt those down. Try to even out that barrel shape a little more, because it is still wider on one end, but it's getting less. And so now I'm going to do a full encasement. So just like I did the blue on the star, I'm going to do a whole coiling around with clear. So this flower will be embedded inside the clear casement. So you just want to keep the barrel fairly even. You want to try to coil evenly around with about the same amount of glass. Add a little bit more where it seems like there's less, so you have a nice even barrel. Going around that outer edge. And so what I'm going to do for this Murrini, instead of actually adding a big amount of glass to one side or the other, I'm going to just more or less melt the side petals down to create the taper that goes into the holding rod. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm focusing my heat on the outer edge of those petals and the clear that's there already, and making that nice taper. And so I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm heating right at that lower edge and having the glass, the clear glass and the petals kind of meld down and taper into the holding rod so that it'll all pull evenly together. So now basically I just have to heat this whole mass, make sure it's nice and soft and ready to pull. I take it out, I let the heat soak in a little bit. So I go in and out of the flame a little bit. And when you feel it's soft enough, which it just about is there, I'm going to slow down this video to real time. And I'm going to start pulling. And I'm a little off screen there, but I come in. And you want to just pull slowly until you get the thickness you want for your Murrini. And you really don't want to twist this. You want to pull straight, or if you start rotating one hand, make sure you rotate the other the same way, in the same direction, so that you don't twist it. You want to keep it straight. And I keep going back and forth. I'm trying. And so I'm heating up in the very back there. You could see the bottom. I'm heating it up a little to pull a little bit more of this cane out. And I'm pretty much done. So I'm going to pull off this end here, which is basically just wasted glass. I'm going to pull off the end, taper it down, and get it off there, because this is turning out to be a really long Murrini cane. And it's really hard to see the petals. You could see a little bit in this zoom in. You could see better on my photo though. And that's how you make Murrini. And I will probably do another video about how to apply the Murrini for next time. So I hope you enjoyed watching.